Painful memories. We were just watching the NBA draft. 2006, I was hosting, and you're told in your ear by the director, hey, the commissioner's coming out with a pick, and Utah Jazz were on the clock. And the commissioner didn't come out when they said he was coming out. And I said, oh, the commissioner, he's playing peekaboo. And then the commissioner came out, and he said, Dan, so here it is. Usually that's when you come out and you say, and the Utah Jazz select. And he said, Dan, I was back listening to your pithy comments, waiting for you to say something nice about the draft picks. And I went, we just interrupted the NBA draft for me to go back and forth with the commissioner. And Jay Bilas was there with me. Jay joins us now. Do you remember how awkward that was, Jay?
I didn't think it was awkward at all. I thought it was great, and it was one. It showed that that you and the commissioner had a very nice relationship, and you know what, Dan? No joke. I mean, it injected a little bit more fun into the draft, which it's not the NFL draft, which goes on forever. But this needs to be fun too. We sit there and we pontificate, or at least I'm the pontificating gas bag about what these guys can and cannot do, in my judgment. But it's supposed to be fun, and we should have fun with it. And you have fun. Jay
is part of the NBA draft telecast on the mothership, starting at 7 Eastern. Reese Davis, Jay Williams, and Jalen Rose will be there with him. New draft cliches. What do we have this year?
I don't know that there are new draft cliches, but you'll hear the appropriate use of wingspan and upside and size for position and things like that, and it'll get a little bit monotonous, but that's the way it goes. I'm just worried about the sobriety of the nation because we have an incredibly long draft class, so the word wingspan is going to come out, and the Jay Bilas drinking game could get the Betty Ford Clinic back on its feet.
Does anybody have a low motor?
Low revving motor. We've got some kind of hybrid cars, more electric, that only go for a certain time before you pull over to the curb and plug it in again. So that may be the new thing with things changing.
Well, maybe you have a hybrid and you call him the Prius. Is there a hybrid tonight, like a stretch 4 that can also be a big man, or you got a 2 and a 3? Justice Winslow is the Prius. He's a hybrid.
He's a hybrid, but that guy's like a tank, though. He's such a stud athletically, and
I like him a lot.
I love that kid, and I think one of the things, Dan, that's going to be really cool about this draft is, and here's another buzzword cliche, it really is a high character draft. And I always laugh when I say high character because I called one guy the ultimate high character guy, and Bill Simmons wrote in his article the next day, "Isn't that Gandhi?"
Mother Teresa.
Yeah, exactly. But there's it doesn't seem like there's a bad guy in the group this year. That there's so many good guys that you just like being around, and so we're not going to be talking about off-court things. Everything tonight is going to be about on-court, what they can and perhaps can't do, or how good they're going to be, rather than, boy, this guy brings some baggage. There are no baggage handlers, bringing in baggage this year.
If you're the Lakers, what do you do?
I take whoever Minnesota doesn't take of Towns or Okafor. And if I were Minnesota, reasonable minds can differ on this one. This isn't one where if you like Towns, I would argue with you. I wouldn't argue one bit because Towns is going to be outstanding. He's outstanding now, and I think he's going to be a great NBA player. I favor Okafor, and Towns is more versatile and he can do more things well. Okafor does one thing in such a dominant fashion that Towns doesn't do. I would take Okafor because of that, and that's his low post scoring. I mean, I think you're going to have to double team him as soon as he gets his uniform on. And I hear all this small ball stuff, and I don't discount it that the game has evolved in a way, but it hasn't evolved so much that if you got somebody that can score it down the post, you're not going to have to double him, and it's not going to change things. And you go small ball against any team that's got Okafor, and he's going to put 30 on the small guy you put on him. You're going to have to match his size and double him in order to keep him from scoring in the post.
Yeah, I don't buy into this small ball. If you tell me there is another Steph Curry and Klay Thompson out there, then great. We can play small ball, but those guys aren't falling out of the trees here.
I don't think so. And look, Steph Curry is what I think a lot of people would refer to as an outlier. I mean, he's so good. I think he's going to wind up being one of the all-time greats. But last year, San Antonio didn't play small ball. I mean, I think the thing that we're seeing is the better teams and the more successful teams, the trend, the ball is moving more. So we're seeing more player movement, ball movement. I actually think that the ball moves more in the pro game in the NBA than it does in college. Frankly, you're seeing more sort of isolation pick and roll stuff in college now than you are in the NBA. In some measure, and they pass more times per possession and sort of per 24 seconds than they do in college. There's a lot more wasting of time in college.
Yeah, and I think basketball is cyclical as well. We don't have the big man or what we deemed a normal big man. The game has changed a little bit. The big guys want to shoot threes, but I do think with Towns and Okafor, if that's my strength, you still have to counter my strength. I might not be able to play small ball, but if you try to play big ball with me, then you know what? You're going to be at a decided disadvantage. And I think you're going to have teams that are going to have to choose how they want to play. And I love both of those kids. And personally, I think they're great too, Towns and Okafor. So I see those two going 1-2, and I think that Minnesota's really going to be a good team, I think, right away with him. But I love the fact that let's go big if we have to, because you have to counter us as well.
I agree. And look, the game may be changing or evolve in certain ways, but I don't think if you got the chance to take Shaq, you're going to go, well, I'd rather have a little guy because he can make three. You're going to take Shaq.
Yeah.
And there haven't been a lot of those big guys that have come along of late. But I do think that Okafor is one of them. Towns is more the modern, versatile big guy that can play 4 or 5, and they can step out on the perimeter. But Okafor gives you something that very few players do, and that's a big-time low-post scoring game. He's NBA ready in the post right now.
He's Jay Bilas of the Mothership. Coverage tonight starts at 7 Eastern. Reese Davis, Jay Williams, Jalen Rose also on the panel with Jay. We were talking... if you're looking at Porzingis, if he played college ball, we would have already picked him apart. If he played 4 years at Wisconsin and Frank Kaminsky played in Spain, would we think more highly of Kaminsky because we would just see YouTube videos and just whispers and rumors about how he plays, how good he is?
Yeah, we might. I mean, we'd be different for, NBA scouts that are seeing them in person all the time and get to know them and scout them every bit as well as they do the college guys. But I think you'd have more of a comfort level. And, you've probably heard the stats since 2002 when Yao Ming was drafted number 1. There have been 19 internationals taken in the lottery, and not one of them have been an all-star, made at least one all-star team. And so that's not dispositive of the issue that somehow Porzingis and, Chris Porzingis and Mario Hezonja, who are both expected to be taken in the top 7 or 8, are not going to be great NBA players. They may very well be. I don't know whether it's a combination of some scouting or projection mistakes that everybody makes on internationals or college or whatever. And sometimes, there are some things where you don't see them enough and you over project these guys. But Porzingis is really talented. He's a perimeter player at 7'2", and his body doesn't lean toward a physical game. And maybe he'll get that, but he doesn't have it yet.
Can you compare Sam Decker to somebody tonight who's not white?
Oh, sure I can, but I'm terrible at the comparison thing. People go, well, who does he remind you of that's an NBA player? And I've never been good at that, and I've never really used that in the way I do things. You look at size projections and things like that and how guys do based upon their size and skill and athleticism. Like, I think Decker's really good, but he's a little bit streaky. And that's the only downside. But when he's in an up-and-down game, like we had him at the LeBron James Skills Academy last summer. John Lucas was running the college workouts, and I was helping him. And Luke has this thing. He basically used a 12-second shot clock because he wants to see the guys make quick decisions. And Decker was the best player there. And there were a bunch of guys in this draft that were there, Stanley Johnson, Kelly Oubre, the two guys from Martin and Mickey from LSU, and Portis, you name it. And Decker was the best player. And I think he can operate an up-tempo game and operate pretty effectively.
Yeah, I guess what would make me nervous is on the big stage that he disappeared. I don't know if you can compartmentalize and say, because of that. I did like the talent potential, but I think it's a crapshoot with trying to figure out just how good somebody's going to be, how much weight they'll add, what role they play, who's their coach, the style, all those things. But He's
not
talented.
he's not an all-star. He's not an all-star player, but I think he could be a starter and a good piece.
Would you rather play with LeBron James or Kobe Bryant at their peak?
At their peak,
yes.
Boy, talk about a great decision to have to make. I would probably say LeBron because he's a better passer, and I think he wants to get people a little bit more involved. But Kobe's a killer. I mean, I love both those guys. I mean, they're two of the all-time greats, and maybe in the top 10 of guys who've ever played the game. That might be a little bit conservative. So talk about a good decision to have. That's a high-class problem.
But who gives you a better chance of winning?
Well, that I don't know because neither one of them have like. I'm not sure has Kobe gotten the team to the finals by himself like LeBron has, and I really do think it was by himself this year, and maybe even in 2007 when he took Cleveland before. I mean, that's kind of the hard part, Dan. Is like it's like arguing over Tiger and Jack. We kind of get into this counting exercise when you go, okay, who's better between Tiger and Jack? And well, until Tiger gets 19, I don't want to hear it. It's just a counting thing. So it's almost so hard to differentiate between the greats of the great that it kind of numbs your mind.
Have fun tonight. Inject some humor in there if you can. All right.
I plan on being pithy, Dan.
I like it.
I want to go old school back to David Stern. It's going to be pithy in honor of Dan Patrick.
But do you remember, though, he was so upset that we kept every draft pick was a bad draft pick. And then at one point, Stephen A. Smith said, "That's it. I don't know what Portland's doing." And then he said, I got no words. And then I'm going, oh, my God.
Look, I thought from my seat, which is totally objective, that you were the one that took us to negative town. That if it weren't for you, it would have been a good draft.
You're right. That's why I'm not there anymore, Jay. Because of that night. Thanks for making me relive bad memories. Tell the boys I said hello. Good to talk to you, Jay.
Enjoyed it, brother, as always.
All right. That's Jay Bilas from the Mothership. I went to negative town.